Well, welcome. Today's Friday. You are on the Daily Huddle. Oh, hang on 1 second. Well, my live stream was going on along with this. So we're live on YouTube, and you can subscribe to the Daily Huddle at the Daily Huddle on YouTube. Today's conversation is one that I hope you'll remember for the rest of your life, because the way I learned it uh, changed my life, and it made me the person I am. I learned from a very good friend of mine, whom you all know, and I learned that recently, by the way. Tara Heaton said in a post, "Don't teach people what you learn. Rather, tell them a story about how you learned it." And I responded to Tara's post and said, "Tara, I'm going to practice for the rest of the month. Whenever I have something I want to teach or share, I'll share it through the story of how I learned it." So today's episode is about how I learned the difference between a real yes and a real no. So today's talk is entitled Redefining Yes and No, the Key to High Performance Leadership. So I'm going to tell you first what I learned, with the intention for you to hear it, maybe learn it too. And then I'm going to tell you the story about how I learned it from my parents, especially my father. And then I'm going to share again what I learned and the impact it's had on me as a father, a son, a husband, and a consultant in the world. So this is what I learned. I learned that there are many times I say yes when I am saying no. And I don't realize that I am saying no, even though I'm saying yes with all of my heart, all of my sincerity. And I also learned that there are times when I say no with all my heart and all my sincerity. And in fact, when I say no, I'm actually saying yes. So, what makes a yes a no? And what makes a no a yes? This is what makes a yes a no, and what makes a no a yes. When I say yes, but I'm hoping that the conditions, the circumstances, all the tools, all the knowledge I need are present and right for me to honor my yes. I'm actually saying a yes that is conditional. And a conditional yes is maybe a no. In the same fashion, there are many times I've said no, but I've really said no conditionally. Now, I'll tell you a few occasions, two occasions on my end. I met Susan, my wife, when we had just graduated from college. Oh my God, you should have seen her hair, the color of her skin, the way her face goes. I am madly in love. And of course, I say yes immediately. I'm that kind of guy. But in the back of my mind, I kept asking myself, will I have, will I have the wherewithal to actually take care of a family? Will I have the wherewithal to take care of Susan the way I promised to take care of her, to her mother, to do it all? And I wasn't sure I could. So my yes to Susan as her husband was conditional. And when my conditional, it lives me it leaves me living a life given by the conditions. And by the same token, when the no I say is conditional, it leaves me living a life given by the conditions. And what I learned from my mom and dad is that when I'm living in those spaces where the conditions that define my yes and the conditions that define my no's are living me the life I live, I'm actually living a life that is not mine. And that's what they taught me to be an authentic life. So, Tara, I didn't admit to you quickly enough for you to hear the acknowledgement that I was giving you. And here's what I acknowledged. You said in a recent post, Tara, that when you want to teach people something, don't just teach it to them and tell them what you learned. Rather, tell them a story about how you learned it. And I responded to your post and said, Tara, I'm promising to share with people how I learned what I learned, to practice. So I'm practicing.
I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that a second time for my benefit.
So I am practicing this morning and practicing with, in a way to honor you, but I'm discovering that in sharing how I what I learned, I get to honor in a little town called Akaye in Haiti. I am Haitian and really proud to be. I love my father. I love my mother. And I'm going to tell you 3 short stories about my father, where those short stories that he told me taught me about yes being unconditional, or a yes being a real yes. So my father was around 16, and he was working as a mechanic back then, apprenticing, but really committed to his craft. Still living with my grandmother. Her name was Melanie. Melanie was a hardworking woman, a woman of God, a Protestant who took real pride in making sure that she provided for my father without my grandfather being in the picture. Yes, my grandmother was a single Haitian mother raising my dad and his 2 brothers. As it turns out, the national lottery back then was a big deal in Haiti. And my dad's coworkers said, why don't you play? And he played for 5 goods, the equivalent of $1 back then. Left the shop, didn't come back for a week or so. And when he came back, everybody was just showering him, saying, hey, man, Gene, do you know about this? He goes, no, what? They said, man, you won the lottery. In fact, the ticket you bought was the first prize. Dad immediately dropped everything, rushed to the lottery office. Back then, there were no checks, no bank account. He said, you know what? I went to the hardware store. I bought a sack of cement, big sack, and I poured the cement out so I could have something to stash the cash in. So he went to the lottery office, and lo and behold, they stashed this entire bag of cement full of cash. Dad took it, wrapped it under his arm, walked out. He slapped it on the back of his bike and went straight to the bicycle store. My dad had this dream of having a bike that had the magneto light in front, the nice colors, the fenders on both the front and back wheel. He bought a red one. And he immediately told the guy, I'm loaded, so give me all the upgrades. So dad got all the upgrades. Now, here's where dad said an unconditional yes that he shared with me that taught me. Dad went straight home with the cash, took the entire bag, minus what he paid for the bicycle, gave it to my grandmother and said, Mom, remember the house we wanted to buy? Here's the money to buy the house. Now, back then, $2,500 was a lot of money. And Grandma bought a house. It's a 3-room house. And by the time my father got married, 8 years later, I was born in the first room because Grandma was generous enough to remember that my dad said, yes, this money's yours unconditionally. And I was born. That house was in the slums of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And so I learned that that unconditional yes that my father said had him live a life given by a yes without conditions. He never once second guessed the fact that he gave all the money to my grandmother. That's the first unconditional yes that my father shared with me that gave me a sense that there's a big difference between saying yes and giving the conditions of my life or the circumstances outside of my life the power to shape my yes or my yes, and then finding very creative ways to actually have any circumstance, any condition bend to the will of the yes that I said. That was the first yes that my dad shared with me. The second yes I want to share with you is the one I experienced. We were then living in a little town called Martissant in the northwest corner of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And I remember that Sunday, we all dressed in our Sunday best. My dad is a dapper man. He had on a white shirt, one of those thin black ties, and my mother had her brightest dress. She even wore makeup that day. And my brother, it was just me and Franz back then. Franz was 7 and I was 11 years old. We were two dressed in our Sunday best. I had on my white shirt, long sleeves with a thin tie, because that's the way we are. And guess what? I didn't have on long pants. I had my finest Sunday shorts on. Guess what we were doing? We were planning on going to the airport so that my dad could take his first trip to New York. Back then, 68, 69, there was a program just like the Biden immigration program that was seeking qualified Haitian mechanics to go work in New York City because there was a labor shortage in New York. So a lot of immigration that happens that way, where people who need to work can't find work where they are. They take a trip to New York City or Chicago because there are jobs there and no one to fill them. So my dad came that way. He said an unconditional yes. That unconditional yes was that I will go there and live in a place where there is snow, and I shall not come back until I've made enough money to start a business. I tell you, Mom and Dad used to have phone calls. Back then, we used to have to go to the operator's house so that we can take a long distance call from New York, from my dad. And Dad would tell us about how cold it was, the fact that he was cooking on his own. He was eating stuff that he cooked, but he didn't cook them so well. But you know what? That never distracted him from the yes he said. And what I learned from that is that my dad, when he said yes, it's not that the conditions were lined up to make the yes work. He said the yes not knowing what conditions he'd have to face. He said the yes while facing the conditions and then getting really creative to find the way to have the yes be fulfilled in spite of the conditions. So I kept learning from my dad that saying yes isn't something one say when I know exactly how it's going to turn out. Saying yes, the kind of yes that creates high performance, the kinds of yes that leaves me in a way in moments when it matters, emotional, the kinds of yes that leaves me communicating in a very straight way, and the kinds of yes that leave me able to rally people around an idea like my dad did. So guess what? 6 months later, Dad had saved every penny because he stayed with my aunt. He didn't have to pay rent. And when he came back to Haiti, where I was, he bought his first mechanic shop. To this day, my dad is 91. He never stopped doing that. He kept saying yes to being a mechanic. And now he owns a mechanic shop at the corner of 52nd Street and 2nd Avenue Northwest in Miami, in Little Haiti.
Hello.
And that came as a result of the unconditional yes that my dad said. I want to tell you about one more because that one hit home for me. It was in July 1977. Dad had been taking many trips to New York to do exactly what I just told you. And that year, he and Mom had decided that the whole family would leave Haiti and stay in the United States. Now, this unconditional yes was really tough on me. I was a teenager back then.
Hello.
Yes. I'll ignore that for now. I was a teenager back then. And leaving my friends, leaving my school, leaving my girlfriend was tough. But I thought I was only leaving just for the summer vacation. But it wasn't the case. We were actually leaving for good. And my dad said yes to leaving Haiti unconditionally. We left a 2-story home with cars and the business, and we moved to Miami, Florida, with nothing but the money he collected by selling what he could sell before he left. And this is what an unconditional yes looks like. When we moved, it was my 2 brothers, myself, Mom and Dad. We didn't have a place to stay. A friend of us named Fougere Funius, and I'm naming his name to say thank you, had an old beaten down trailer in the back of his house. And that trailer had one room with a bed, another little room that served as a family room, living room, and a kitchen. It was long and narrow, not a double wide, a single wide. That's where we lived for an entire year. Facing those conditions, thinking in my little teenager head, what would my friends in Haiti think about us, seeing us living that way? Now that I look back at it, I'm learning that that's what it takes to live the life given by an unconditional yes. And I've taken those lessons into my life, into my profession, into my work. And every time I remember these stories, every time I remember the way my dad is, the example he gave to me, I have the courage, any condition, Not that I face them successfully all the time. I have the courage to keep saying yes and to keep being really creative about how I can make what I say yes to happen. And you know what? A number of good things have happened, including a number of things I don't like. I'll tell you about a few of the good things. I have been saying yes to being married to Susan for 38 years. That marriage has produced 3 beautiful sons. I have been saying yes to being in a conversation for Haiti being a developed nation in my lifetime since 1999. Now, that one's not turning out so good yet, but I keep saying yes. And when I keep saying yes that way, it gives me a life I love to live. And what I wanted to share with you today is the possibility that you could say yes like that too. And many of you already are. So I'm just reminding you of the way you say yes. But it gives me a lot of joy this morning to share with you a piece of my family, a piece of my father, a piece of my mother that has made me the person I am, that's made me the person who could sit with you this morning and share the story with you. It's 20 after. I'd love to hear, in the context of redefining yes when you're saying it and no when you're saying it, by making each of them neither bad nor good, but unconditional, meaning you refuse to have your yes or your no be defined by anything other than what you say. The conditions, though they're there, you can recognize them for exactly what they are, just the conditions of life, and go past them anyway, sticking to your yes without giving any power to the conditions. What do you want to say for yourself? And what would you like to share in the context of redefining yes and no in your own life or your own business? Who'd like to say? Tara, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for this very enriching conversation. And I'm not 100% sure if this is what I was supposed to take from it, but I'll tell you what I did take from it. I'm thinking about the times in life when we say no and we berate ourselves for it. And every time I say no to something, like I said no to my first marriage, I was saying yes to something too. I was saying yes to freedom. I was saying yes to hope. And when I said no to a big client less than a year ago, I was saying yes to finishing my book, and I was saying yes to focusing on new clients that spoke to more to how I wanted to guide my business. So that's what I'm taking from it. That even if we don't keep the yes, the original yes, we're saying yes to something, and to focus on that is very empowering. So thank you.
It is, Tara. Thank you for bringing that perspective. In in the context of saying no unconditionally, it forces me to look at my intention first. Sometimes when I say no without looking at my intentions, I actually end up saying yes to something I don't want to say yes to.
Been there, haven't we all?
And vice versa. Sometimes when I say yes without checking my intention, I may say yes. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, I have said yes a lot of times just to look good, like to be on somebody's good list. And when I say yes, just to be on somebody's good list without checking that intention, I end up living a pretty miserable life until that goes away. So you are absolutely right. That's exactly what I learned from mom and dad, that
Hi.
saying yes and saying no and checking my intention first makes a big difference. Thank you, Tara. Michelle.
What I took from this wonderful conversation is that you're burning your boats
Yes.
and it's making promises to yourself that you will keep your word to yourself.
I love the analogy of burning your boats, right? Because I could so see, that house in Haiti that I described to you,
Mhm.
it is beautiful. It was the house of our dreams. And we left it behind. And we spent a year in a single wide. We burned the boats. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much like the story of my family escaping the communists, left everything behind, one suitcase for a family of four, and left everything behind with
Yeah.
no chance to go back. My parents would have gone to the gulags, my sister and I to some unknown fate. So there was no going back.
Yeah. That's what an unconditional yes looks like sometimes. And that can be really
Mhm.
scary.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it can.
Yeah. Irma.
Good morning, Mastermind. I'm so glad that I was here to enjoy the not the beginning, but the middle and the end, and hear about your family, Sorrel. It made so much sense from Wednesday night's open mind. I can relate, and I have had situations also where I had to flee uh, with an unconditional yes from DC. And then my transfer here to Florida was not as dramatic and necessary as it was from DC to Memphis. But to hear it was a yes, it was something that I've been wanting to do for all of my life and all of my adult life, to get back to the East Coast where I was born and to be in the warmth and to be in a place where I really enjoy. And to say yes, I had to leave so much behind, but I did, Sorrel. And that was my unconditional yes.
Yeah.
One of many.
One of many. And, sometimes, Irma, thank you for sharing that. What's coming up for me and what you're just saying is that sometimes I have unconditional yeses that are forced by life. And this is an opportunity for us to take on saying unconditional yeses deliberately, without having to wait for some circumstance or another to force an unconditional yes. We each have the power to experience the kind of invented life that an unconditional yes and an unconditional no brings. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Ronald. E. Bertrand, go ahead.
Just enough time for me to play around with my mouse and get this on. This is interesting, man. I haven't been in Delhi Auto for a minute, but I don't know what happened this morning between shooting down an email, and I got a meeting at 10, and I just like click it, and here I am into a beautiful story. You know what I got present to, and I'm kind of moved by that too, because this is my story. I am moved by this. I am moved by you telling a story, and telling a story that many of our brothers can relate to. And I am moved by your ability of telling a story. And be it Tara is here too, Tara the master, Tara the master of storytelling. I mean, this has been a really great moment, a moment for a lot of us, for the world. I'm just amazed by the power of the storytelling, and it's just amazing. I've been away from Daily Huddle, but just this morning, God had to tell me to click that Daily Huddle Zoom thing, and I'm so glad I did. Thank you guys for this moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'm just out. Thank you. And so I got something seriously that's coming up, and I mean, off the clock here. I just got nominated to receive an award, and I want you to be there. I want you to be there for me, and we'll go into the detail. I actually put your name on the list already, and I need you. I will put you. I will get you into the detail, and this is the story. This is the story that bring this word. This is that story that you just told that bring this word. And you know, anyway, guys, thank you so much. This is the best video. Though something happened this morning that pushed me to click it. I've been grinding down I've been grinding down, I'm sure I missed a lot of good Billy Idol. In fact, I try to really go back and listen. And Tara, I'm actually listening to one of them that actually on the that's God, I forgot it, but I know I got to go listen to it because I started listening to it. So listen to this thing really get me grounded and get me to understand the power of my yes. And Sorrel, what's also interesting, God, keep coming. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, it's taking me a long time, but those things keep coming. It's the power of intention. It's the power of the intention, because you started that the other day by saying, you have a lot of thought. I received your little podcast. You have a lot of thoughts that come in and they come in, but the thoughts are the thought to be, and the thought can remain thought is you connecting back to the power of intention. And this is what your dad did, the power of intention, the intention of freedom, the intention of giving the best for your family to create who we are today. And I can't call your dad my dad because this is exactly what my dad did. This is what my mom did. So thank you so much for bringing this. I'm amazed. And I gotta get to the meeting at 10, and I'm all wide. I'm gonna have to bring it down. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, Ronald. And thank you, Tara.
That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Ingrid, you'll be the last one.
Grand rising to all. Sorrel, of course, your story struck with me because that is also my story. I am from, and I hope I don't get teary-eyed, but I guess it's okay because I won't be the only one crying here, right? I am from Trinidad, and my parents said unconditional yes and came to New York for betterment of their children, right? They had three of us. And back then, if you had a child born here in America, you could bring up the ones in the Caribbean. So my younger sister was that purpose. She's born here. So my parents, not knowing this land, never been here, left us with our grandmothers and said yes, unconditionally, to come here and make a better place for their family, right? And once we came here and I come to know myself, I have made unconditional yeses to honor my parents' unconditional yes with each job that I've said yes to. Like my first real job other than Medix and McDonald's and stuff like that, even though McDonald's I was a manager, but that was real, but like getting into adulthood. I was in a working in a daycare center, off the books, and on public assistance. So I was getting free money, right? But the environment there was not conducive to my mindset and what I wanted for myself. I was working with family, but they would just sit there and gossip all day. And I was like, oh, some people came into the daycare and did recruitment for internship in another place. So I left my paying job where I was getting money off the books and went towards this internship to work for free. Ended up getting hired and being there for 10 years. Then that was an unconditional yes. I didn't know what I was going towards. Then after 10 years, I said another unconditional yes to go to NYPD for betterment of self, right? A city job, civilian. Everybody's like, are you sure I won't know till I get there. Another unconditional yes, not knowing what I'm going towards, but to honor my parents' unconditional yes that they did for a better life for self. I am trying to better myself. After 8.5 years at NYPD, another unconditional yes to New York City Department of Corrections. I don't know what I'm going to get, what's going to happen when I get there. And the stories that I heard were very scary. But again, to honor my parents' unconditional yes that they made in 1969 to come to New York and bring me up in 1974, I made another unconditional yes, again, to climb the ladder and better myself and honor my parents' unconditional yes. So I understand the story, and I'm still saying unconditional yeses. When I went for health coaching and became a certified health coach, I don't know what it's going to bring me, but everything is always the reason of betterment of self. And in this last venture as a health coach is for betterment of others, not just self. So those are my unconditional yeses. And it all started with my parents' unconditional yes. And my mother stayed with my sister's godmother and put all her money in a suitcase under a bed so she could bring the three of us up here. And that's my piece for today.
Yeah. Well, folks, you never know where your unconditional yes will take you. I can guarantee you, though, that every time you say yes unconditionally, and every time you say no unconditionally, you live a life that you invent. And
I like that voice.
every time you say no unconditionally, you also live a life that you invent, a life of your own choice, as opposed to a life given by the circumstances that you find yourself in. So go forth for the rest of your life. Take a page out of my dad's life, a page out of Ingrid's life, a page out of Irma's life, a page out of Ronald's life, a page out of Tara's life, a page out of Giovanni Gonzalez's life, who's in Armenia, Colombia today, leading inside of an unconditional yes to a stand for transformation, and live a life where you adopt the 8 tenets of the Daily Huddle, which is to say yes unconditionally to love. Say yes unconditionally to every single opportunity, to laugh out loud and just be you. To say yes unconditionally, to take good care of your body by eating mostly plant-based. And to say no unconditionally to the things that may not be suited to keep you healthy. To say yes unconditionally to sleeping, giving, resting, moving your body, and to be someone who moment by moment, when you do remember, check yourself and say, you know what? Maybe this circumstance is just a circumstance. Maybe those conditions are just conditions. I do not have to let them run me. I'm choosing today to let the unconditional yes, I say, or the unconditional no, I say, give me the life I live. I love you. Thank you for the gift of the daily huddle. And thank you for being here. I'll see you on Monday.
One love, guys. One love.